Hello all. So we are actually understanding how we can make use of parameters in different ways. How do you use a parameter in a calculated field? And how do you use a parameter for reference lines, bins? And then we also looked into how a parameter could be used along with the filters as well as with the sets. Now, in this discussion, what we are going to see is how do we actually achieve dynamic dimension and measures. Okay, so this dynamism with respect to your dimension and a measure is something which you will achieve it through the parameters. All right, so let's try to understand the use case of what do I mean by a dynamic dimension first of all. And also another question that might be there in the mind is, do we really require a dynamic dimension? So when I try to answer for this question, like, do we really require a dynamic dimension? You could have got a point, what is the necessity of a dynamic dimension? So let's try to understand that first. Suppose, for example, you are attending a very crucial meet, like, for example, maybe it could be any kind of meet, and you are basically with almost all of the stakeholders of a company, or almost all with all the stakeholders of the organization. You're having a meeting, and you are somebody who is actually giving the visualization part, and you are on discussion about what was the top 10 sales which was there in your organization, or any top product category which had the top sales, any kind of thing that is shown. Okay, now what is the point is, we are actually not worried about what is being shown in the visualization, but what is the worry here is that um, the audience or the stakeholders, when they are listening to your presentation and when they are viewing your visualization, you are showing a visualization wherein you have a top 10 sales category. Okay, and you are showing that. At that point of time, someone is stopping you in the middle of the presentation and they are asking you to show the least 10. Okay, so if you have to show the least 10 at that point of time, obviously what we need to do is we need to do some kind of modifications with respect to the data, right? So what they are expecting is that in terms of a dimension, they wanted to make some changes. Okay, for example, you are showing you're showing a visualization with the categories. Suddenly someone is asking you to show the visualization in terms of segments. With the segments, you show me the sales. So immediately you need to go to another type of visualization, in fact speaking. So, but this would become very problematic in case if you haven't provided a privilege for the user to select on the dimension that they wanted to visualize it. Okay, in the same visualization, they just wanted to dynamically change the dimensions so that they have certain questions with relative to that corresponding dimension, and they just wanted to clarify that. So for that, they wanted to dynamically change the dimension in the same visualization, and then they just wanted to have an idea of what's happening. All right, so this is the idea, and this is the reason why we are going for something called as a dynamic dimension or your measure as well. So by having a dynamic dimension, what you're going to achieve is that definitely you're going to add some kind of space saving as well as the user experience benefit. It is a definite user experience benefit, just because of the reason, like, with a click, a user is able to change the dimension and see in the same visualization, they are able to visualize the things with a different dimension, which is a better user experience. So in the middle of the meet, if somebody stops you and asks you to change the dimension, for you also it is not an awkward moment. So all of these things could be done if you are able to achieve something called as a dynamic dimension. So how do we do this dynamic dimension? Means there comes the role of your parameters. So we are trying to achieve this dynamic dimension with the assistance from the parameters. All right. So now I hope that you got an idea of why we are going for something called as a dynamic dimension or a measure, and then what it can benefit us truly. Now let's try to go ahead and understand how we can create a dynamic dimension. Very simple. The traditionally whatever steps we follow to create I mean any kind of thing, like you used a parameter along with a calculated field, you need to create a parameter and a calculated field, and then you have to observe the changes in the view. Similarly, if it is in terms of a filter also, you will take the filter and then you are going to create a parameter parameter with respect to the filter, and then you are going to observe the changes from the parameters. Okay, this is the traditional way or the traditional approach they are adopting, irrespective of with what you are going to make the parameters. Even with the reference lines, it was the same case. All right. So now let's try to understand how this dynamic dimensions can be achieved. So unless and until I show you this, then you will not be in a position to understand what I'm speaking about. So let's get inside our Tableau's workbook. Okay. So now what I need to do is, first step was I need to create a parameter, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a parameter, and I'm just going to give the name as dynamic dimension itself. All right. And then I'm going to give the data type as a string, because I just wanted the category to be it needs to be, the dimension needs to be displayed. So if you take the dimensions here, segment is there, right? Category is there. These are all the dimensions which I'm talking about. And all of these data type is obviously a string. So that's the reason why I have opted for a string over here. And then I just wanted to create a list basically of all the different type of dimensions that I wanted to see here. So what is the list that I'm going to create is, the first one is with a category, and then I'm going to add the ship mode, and then I'm going to add the segment. Okay, so these are the dimensions which I am considering it for showing the dynamism. Okay, so segment is one more thing that I am going to create it. Okay, so now that we have created a parameter, so you can actually make use of the parameter only with a calculated field, or with the assistance from the filter only you can make use of the parameters, right? So in our case, let's go for the calculated field itself. Now this is fine, this is done, and click on OK. Now you can see that there is a dynamic dimension parameter is already available. Now I have to power up this parameter basically. So how do I power up this parameter is through a calculated field. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and create a calculated field here. So let me just give the calculated field name as the dynamic calculation field or anything like that. Okay, since it is a dynamic calculation, let me just give it as dynamic calculation field. Okay, and here what I wanted to do is that I just wanted to create a case, because for what I'm going to create a case means I'm going to create the case statement for the list which I have created in my parameter. So it is my case. The function is a case function, for which I am going to apply this case function is, I'm just going to apply this for my parameter, which is my dynamic dimension. What I am going to do is nothing. I just will, whenever you have a string like category, then when you have a string like a category, then what you're going to have is you're going to have the category itself. Okay, So if you click on category, it is going to pull up the records from the category and it is going to display it in your view. Okay, so that's what we wanted to do here. Do it, and that's what we are doing here. So similarly, for when ship mode is also if it is a ship mode, then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull the ship mode. Okay, so that's done. Now next is one more we added was a segment, right? So the string is actually a segment. Then what I'm going to have is, of course, a segment. Okay, and every time you know that case should be ended with a end. Okay, so now that we have created our calculated field, which is our table calculation, we have done it. Now that you just click on OK. Now what you will get is that you have already got your it's a newly created dynamic dimension parameter. This is right, and this one is a dynamic dimension calculated fields. Okay, now what we have to do is we need to see how this parameter is working, whether we are able to achieve dynamism in our dimension or not. We need to verify that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to get my yeah, so now that we will just drag our categories to, yeah, I'll just drag my categories to the columns, and then sales is there, which is also I'm going to put it in my rows. Okay, so category and sales is there. Now we will drag our dynamic calculation field is also there, right? So that also needs to be dragged to our columns basically. Okay, so once this is done, we have got some kind of visualization. All right, so now what we can do is that we will just go ahead and let us take our dynamic dimension parameter and let us show the parameter. Okay, so now the parameter is shown. Okay, so now we have got a parameter menu that we have created. Okay, so now if I will change this categories, okay, so now you can see that, you know, as soon as I clicked on a ship mode, then the visualization is getting actually changed. And if I will click on a segment, the visualization is getting changed differently. So what we have got here is all dimensions. Okay, category is a dimension, ship mode is a dimension, and segment is a dimension. You are presenting this visualization, and somebody, when they are viewing this visualization, they just wanted to change the category to ship mode, and then they wanted to observe the sales with respect to the ship mode. So if they wanted to observe the sales with respect to the ship mode, then they can actually make use of the parameters like this. This will become very handy and really useful for, from an user's perspective, it will be really useful. So this is the way you can make use of your dynamic dimension. Okay, so if you will take a dynamic measure, conceptually the dynamic measure as well as the dynamic dimension is like, you know, the stepwise, the procedure wise, how do you create a dynamic measure with a parameter, all of these things is going to be the same. Okay, so but instead of having a dynamic dimension measure, you will obviously having a dynamic measure here. Okay, so let's try to understand that as well. Okay, so I have just deleted all the dimensions which I have done right now. Okay, it is looking like a new sheet now. Now what we will do is that we will try to create a dynamic measure for with, like, you know, instead of a dimension value, let's use a measure value, and then we will try to create a dynamic measure parameter. Okay, so let's go, and then let me just create, the steps are the same. So first I'm going to create a parameter. Okay, And what I'm going to name it as, of course, this is going to be a dynamic measure parameter. This is what it is going to be. And here also, we do not know what is the type of the measure that we are going to use it. So let me just keep the data type as string. Okay. And then what we wanted to do is that again here also we will try to create a list, same kind of list. But here what are the columns that we will try to include would be, like for example, this should be consisting of only the measures, right? So if it is a measure, sales is one measure, and then profit is one measure, and then you have a quantity, right? This is one more measure. So that's all we have. Okay. So these are the measures that we are going to take it. And we have created a parameter with a list of these three values. Fine. These three measures basically. So now click on OK. Then the parameter is created now. Now the next step is what? The next step is, of course, we need to create our calculated field, because with a calculated field only, you are going to make your parameter to work, right? So I have just clicked on my create calculated field, and then I am into this window where I'm going to give the name of my calculation window as, maybe we'll give the same name, dynamic measure. Yeah, dynamic measure calculation we will give it. Okay. And here what we need to do, it's the same step we have to write it. For which one I'm writing the case means I'm writing the case for the dynamic measure parameter. Okay. So it is dynamic measure parameter. It has come already. Now we have to write the when condition. When is sales, when it is a sales, then what you're going to do is sales. Okay. So that's all. Similarly, when it is a profit, then you're going to select profit itself. Okay. Then when, what is the other one is, I think it's a quantity. When quantity, then also it is going to be a quantity. You got the value. Now end this. All right. So it's done. Now our calculation, dynamic calculation is also done. That's all, right? That's the only two steps that we have to perform it. Now what I will do is that I just have to, we have a newly created dynamic measure, which is in, this is the measure that you have it, right? Now what you're going to do is that I'm just going to drag the category for your columns, and then for the rows, of course, I will just take this measure, which is a dynamic measure, which is my calculated measure, that I will take it. Now we have our parameter which is in place. Just go to our parameter, just click on show parameter. You will be able to see these three things are there. Now with respect to profit, if you wanted to see it, and this is how it is looking for with respect to profit. And with respect to quantity, yeah, with respect to quantity, again, you can see the differences with the values. Okay. So yeah, so let me just go to sales. Okay. Yes. So this is how the measure is also working. Okay. So with this, what you can understand is that parameters are even preferred for your static data, and most of the time parameters is something that you will be implementing to the entire workbook. Okay. And also, if you could have observed, we have selected multiple values. Okay. And yeah, the implementation, complete implementation is happening through a calculated field. Okay. I hope you got an idea on how you can make use of the parameters to achieve dynamic dimension and the dynamic measures. So definitely it is one way where a user experience is going to be enhanced just because of the way that they are able to select the categories, or to select their dimensions or their measures. You have an option with the parameter to select your dimensions or your measures. So that is a very, that's going to give a definite, a good user experience. So now we have got an idea on how we can make use of dynamic dimension and measures. So one more thing which is left out is with parameters is how do you create your parameters for the what if scenario, and then how do you do this what if scenario analysis. So that's the only thing which is left out, and I'll see you in that session. That's all for this session. Thank you.